Whew, Britney Spears. The police rushed to her wedding because her ex-hubby tried crashing it. So I'm not sure if you've ever had a client with a situation quite like this, but this was at Britney Spears' private wedding event. Now we will watch the video that her ex took while going through. So this is Jason Alexander, who she was married to for that infamous 55 hours, and then their, marriage was annulled. So, he did crash the wedding. We saw a little bit of the sneak peek of the venue as they were trying to set up flowers and things like that. We'll watch that for a second. But initial thoughts, this is what you do, this is your area.
Yeah, so I mean, you have two claims here. One being criminal trespass that the state will bring and likely bring, and then you have civil claims. Britney Spears and her husband now, and I can't recall his name now, but at any rate, they can sue him. They can sue Mr. Alexander for civil trespass. So if there were any damages that were caused to the property or the person or whatever by his trespass, and then of course we saw that there was an altercation with the security guards, and there may be some assault related to that as well too. And again, those are both criminal and civil claims. And then of course there's this whole other issue where he had a warrant for stalking somebody else in a different county. So and he may have been on probation. So there's going to be some Mr. Alexander's going to have a bad day in court. That's for sure.
Well, so the update, as posted a couple hours ago from TMZ, is that Jason's been booked for trespassing, vandalism, 2 batteries related to his physical altercations with her security. We're told that he also has a felony warrant for larceny in another county. So if he's currently locked up, but there's a warrant in another county, how does that work? Can they just ship him over to the other county for processing?
Yeah, they could. It just depends on how they want to work it. And usually the counties kind of work together. So, whenever there's a criminal charge, you have a certain amount of time in which you have to be arraigned. And once you're arraigned, and that has to happen pretty quick. And an arraignment is simply the judge saying, hey, these are the charges that have been levied against you, that are being brought against you. And a lot of times the court will even enter a not guilty plea on your behalf at that time. But they do read the charges. That is a constitutional right. It has to happen in a pretty quick amount of time. And then depending on the schedule and what happens, they may extradite him to the other county. They may bring they may agree with the other county to go ahead and just bring those charges in the county that he's in. It's a little different because it's not a state versus state. A lot of times we see extradition from one state to another based on charges that might be pending, and state laws are different. County laws aren't going to be different because it's all within the same state. So they may just agree to have it in one venue.
Okay. Well, so like I said, I promise we're going to watch. Jason Alexander was live streaming when he did this, which again, guys, I mean, we talk about this on this channel when we do reactions to music videos and we have artists who are admitting to crimes that they committed in their lyrics and then talking about how ultimately, those lyrics end up being used against them when there are criminal charges. So when it comes to just kind of live streaming, and you're trespassing and you're doing something that is problematic in the first place, not a good idea, but Jason did. So let's watch it. All right, so pretty blurry, but he's getting his cardio in. There's some people on the live stream. Now, to me, what's crazy is that he's on private property, and at this point, he still hasn't been stopped. I don't know if he has a weapon. I don't know who this person is and what he's about to do.
Yeah, I was pretty stunned he made it this far.
So he's calling Britney. Britney. There's security. Don't put your hands on me. Don't put your hands on me. So right now he's saying, don't put your hands on me. Does he have a claim against the security if they do, in fact, put their hands on him, drag him out, and throw him off of the property?
Absolutely not. Yeah, you can take him down because even if it's not your property, and especially there are special exceptions for security guards, but in defense of another person or their property, you certainly can and stop him to make sure that one, he doesn't get to Brittany, but two, also that he doesn't damage any property while he's trespassing there. So they had every right to take him down if they wanted to.
Yeah, we recently covered on this channel, DaBaby had shot someone who was trespassing on his property. This person had scaled the wall to his property, was climbing over. There were signs, we have weapons, there are dogs, all kinds of things. Don't trespass. And then someone was, and he shot that person. and that person ended up in the hospital. Obviously not a fatality, but he did have some injuries. But in that kind of circumstance, you have someone who is trespassing, and so you have a right under the law to defend yourself, to defend your property, and that includes if you end up having to shoot them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have to assess the risk, and sometimes you don't have time to assess the risk. So whether or not that's going to be excessive or not is probably for a later determination. But somebody shows up in your house, or even if you're at a house sitting, for example, or if you're just visiting there, or you're working there as a security guard, you have the same rights as the property owner, generally speaking.
Jacob says, lock him up in jail for 6 years. Ivan, not a fan of Britney, but I feel bad for her that she had a rough life. Yes, there's that whole conversation. Now, this event, at least as far as her big happy day, this did happen a few hours prior. I can't imagine, any person wouldn't be upset by this. So hopefully she was able to recover and enjoy her happy day. Michael says, oops, Jason did it again. He was stalking her for a while before the wedding.
Nice, nice.
Castle doctrine. Yes, pretty much. All right, so
Yeah.
let's watch the last part of this. I turned off the audio, so I will just narrate all the fun. So you have to leave. You have to leave. Don't put your hands on me. Hey, where's Britney at, bro? This is I'm Jason Alexander. So now we're actually there we go. Yeah, we're gonna see this beautiful setup. I gotta just comment. I don't even know how many roses are right there, but that's insane. Who are you? This is Michael. I'm Jason. I'm here to crash it. So he's, identifying himself. Britney invited me here. I'm Jason Alexander. She's my first wife, my only wife. So at this point, Tim, I mean, what's your feeling about security? Right? So we had him actually now come into contact with security, and he is still walking around the premises saying, "Where's Britney? Where's Britney?"
Yeah, I think security could have been a little more aggressive and been well within their rights and their duties. Um, the problem is that especially, well, anywhere, there's so much excessive force, there's so many accusations, and then you got a guy who's live streaming, so that's going to be caught, in real time. And even if people aren't seeing it in real time, it's going to be viewed later. And so you want to make sure you handle the situation or the circumstances appropriately. The problem with that is most people tend to be lesser, out of abundance of caution. And so he was able to walk all around. And the problem with that is that if he did have some sort of weapon, he walked up to a guy sitting in the chair there, almost right there at the place where they did their vows and everything like that. What if he pulls out a knife or something like that? I mean, so they would have certainly been able to stop him at the entrance of the home and keep him there and detain him there. And I think that would have been more than reasonable force. Um, you know, Obviously, you don't want to start pulling out guns right away because that could be considered excessive, but they certainly could have gotten physical upon the entrance to the home for sure, if not the property.
Yeah, and look, I mean, these security officers could be off-duty police, but a lot of times there's just private companies that are hired to provide these services. So these are just kind of private individuals who may or may not have the needed training to kind of deal with these situations. So that kind of, I think, comes into play as well. I've had conversations with men who do this for a living, and just kind of my question of, are you going to lay your life down for a gig that you're doing over a weekend? That's the job. You're there to protect someone. But I mean, is that really what you're going to do? And, of course, the response is going to be, of course, we're putting the client first. We're going to do whatever is needed. But, if it's not for that client, we're not doing it. We're not going to put ourselves in harm's way if it's not the person paying us, which I think is fair. So we don't know, obviously, for the security, what company they were with, or if it was, let's say, an off-duty police officer, does that change anything in the analysis, right? So we have a trained professional now.
Yeah, it could if it was sort of if it was an excessive force case because they've undergone the training and then they would probably look at whether or not there were any sort of de-escalation efforts and whatnot. I will point out, at least in Arizona, there are licensing and training requirements for security guards, especially if they're allowed to be armed. And so there is a standard of care, if you will, or standard of conduct, in which is going to be analyzed to a very large degree in handling these situations. And so, the other side of that is you go and get that training, but you also have a boss in your ear saying, "Hey, listen, we don't want to get sued. So make sure that you're, using some caution and not, quick to trigger or quick to temper or anything like that." So it's a really tough spot to be in. But again, I think here they probably let this guy go. Well, I know they let this guy go way too far in.
Well, we have about 20 seconds left in this. Let's see. Let's see what happens. So there's security. He's calling out to someone named Kate. So Jason knows. And it looks like he may have just been tackled. I think possibly a little late in the game with that tackle, but that's just me.
Yeah, and then of course ultimately they called law enforcement after they kind of put him down there a little bit and allowed them to take over, which is probably the appropriate thing to do.
Right. Right. Any final thoughts? Are you at your next wedding, someone comes in and is looking for lady love? I mean, what can the people take away from this?
Well, I think what they can take away from it is number one, if you hire security, make sure they're actually around the perimeter of the place. I mean, this was maybe not the most high profile in the sense that people knew about it, but you have somebody who just walked right into the property, walked right through the front door. So, number one, does Brittany actually have a claim against the security company? Well, that remains to be maybe, and that remains to see if she enforces that.
Yeah,
Does
that's a
she
very
have a
good
civil
point.
claim? Yeah, does she have a civil claim against Mr. Alexander? Well, most certainly for trespass. But there's also a criminal case, and often in criminal cases, they're offered restitution, which is a monetary damage to the victim. And of course, Brittany and Sam, her newly husband, is going to have some sort of claim to restitution if there was any sort of damage to the property upon his trespass. So a lot to happen here yet. We'll see how it plays out.